For a premium brand, chill mode's always activated. They move with minimal convincing, but maximum confidence.
Other people want to join this gym and we're not waiting for you. We don't care if we have you here or not. You're welcome, but yeah.
They don't hear from us, which was on purpose. Like, we didn't want them to hear from us because they were like, are they gonna call me? Did they forget about me? Did my application get lost? Whatever. When we talk about a close rate, Tatum, that was closing like crazy.
I believe it.
Welcome to the first inaugural episode for Out of Office. In today's episode, we're gonna be talking about the psychology of premium branding. The reason we're gonna dive into this is because where we're looking at like the landscape in fitness, a lot of brands are trying to position themselves as luxury, and that's not as easy or as simple as just like beautiful art direction or beautiful photography and clips. It's like the whole encompassing ecosystem that you create as a brand and then how you execute that. And so in this episode, we're gonna be talking about that. We're gonna be focusing on a brand that both Tatum and I have been talking about for a good while now, because they not only have been able to do it in one location, you know, for their gym, but they've also been able to take it from honestly, from an international level all the way to here in the US, and have really been able to do it at scale, which is what I think is like amazing. So let's jump right into it, unless you want to add anything.
Yeah. I think one note that I had written down was that at this point, when you wanted to position as luxury, you really could just have beautiful art direction, premium fabrics, and I mean, you're golden. Like, that's the only positioning you need. But as the fitness and wellness industry saturates, and it's never been easier to launch a brand, honestly, through AI and social media and advertising. I mean, it's just so easy that now it's just so democratized and saturated that, you know, premium aesthetics and, you know, like a quality product, whether that's your fitness modality or an actual product, it's table stakes. So there's got to be more to it, and you have to think about the brand more holistically, which is what I'm particularly interested in. So I'm excited about this conversation. It's going to be a good one.
So we talk about the psychology of premium branding, and we talk about trying to position yourself as luxury within any category. One of the things that I love when a brand can do and own is a signature term. And so diving into a brand that, again, that you and I are both been looking at and essentially dissecting for a bit now is the Yard. And so the Yard has been able to scale from, right, they started in Australia, they've made their way all the way to the US, and, you know, doing that across multiple locations, they've been able to own this term called turf and rig, right? And this is their way of essentially just taking the term strength and conditioning and being able to essentially like spin it and make it their own. Like, that's all it is. It's literally like the term strength and conditioning that we've known as collegiate athletes, as high school athletes, like strength training and cardio, right? Like, all they did was take it, twist it a little bit, and make it their own and make it novel. And so this actually, for me, goes back to this idea from Virgil Abloh, which is a design, like a legendary designer, RIP, who was a creative director at Louis Vuitton and worked on a ton of Nike collabs, where he has this 3% rule. And what he says is, like, you could take any idea and make it novel if you just shift it by 3%, right? And when we think about the term turf and rig, I think about that rule of all he did was take strength and conditioning and be like, okay, how can I phrase this a little bit differently? How can I phrase this where, like, all of a sudden it's novel within this category where everybody and every, you know, competitor in the landscape is calling it strength and conditioning? We're going to call it turf and rig. And like, well, that's what we're going to call our entire like programming. And all of a sudden our programming now gets in this elevated field just because of the fact that, you know, they own that, like, this now feels novel within the category. And so
it also creates kind of a sense of like insider knowledge and a community, which I think is especially important when you're creating like a group fitness concept. And even for luxury branding, it's nice to have the little ins. Like, we, you know, within our brand as a community, we speak the same shared language. It gives, you know, the members a sense of ownership, you know, beyond just, wow, we belong to this incredible gym. Like, we all have this shared kind of language that's a little bit elevated.
Yeah, that's a big thing when we talk about like the psychology of branding, where having like that shared language that essentially connects you guys and almost like feels like exclusive by like the way that you talk, right? Like if we're in West Hollywood, which is where one of the locations are, and there is, and you know, we're talking about our programming, and like, yeah, like we do this thing called Rig and Turf, and all of a sudden, like, it's like you do that as well, right? Like there's that connect, that ability to connect through that language. But the thing that I love about like owning a term is budget brands always have to explain, right? Like this is something that, hey, like if you land on a landing page for a brand that is again, not positioning themselves as luxury, they're like the amount of copy that is on that landing page, right? Where they're trying to explain everything that they're doing. And you look at competitors, you know, in the same realm as like the Yard, their landing pages, the way they have to explain their modalities, the way they have to explain their programming and like what they do, what they offer is completely different than just like Rig and Turf. And then you look at the Yard's actual landing page and like how they describe it, like it's minimal. And so there's this differentiation between like a budget brand and a premium brand, where a budget brand really has to like explain. They're trying to validate their pricing. They're trying to validate what they do and what they offer and why it costs what it does, versus a premium brand, they withhold a lot of information, and they do that on purpose. And then they more so, the more information that you withhold and the more that you make somebody assume and essentially come to conclusions on their own, the better for that premium brand. Because it like if there's withheld information, I read about this, like if there's withheld information, the consumer is literally going to add the information in a way that it is like leveled up in their head, right? And so it's so interesting, and that's just the how like the basics of psychology here with branding, where if you're letting the consumer assume, chances are they're going to assume the highest degree. No different than like when something happens, if something's happening to you, you're assuming the worst, right? Like if it's the same thing, like, but when we're talking about branding and we're talking about price, like we assume the highest or the best. You know, if there's a shirt that has no price on it, you're like, oh, this must be $2,000. It could be $200, but automatically your brain goes to, oh, it's going to be $2,000. And so that is like one of the big elements here that they do, is they withhold a lot of information. And I think they do that at a like just very strategic and at a very good level.
I also think that you know, in kind of withholding information, we talk about this with some other like product-based brands where there's a ton of tech specs that you have to explain. Like sometimes you just treat your consumers and your customers, your members, like adults, and let them go find the information. That's a little bit more elevated than hitting them with everything all at once. You know, even if they might be interested in the tech specs, they might glaze over a little bit. You know, and it's just assuming, hey, you have the knowledge. If you want more information, you can come find it, but we're not presenting you this, you know, gigantic sales page full of information right away. One thing that I always tell, you know, especially the gym owners that I work with, is that perks are not positioning. Especially now that the industry is so saturated. Like I think a common mistake that a lot of like brick and mortar, like gym, fitness business owners make is saying, hey, we have like, you know, an infrared sauna and like a cold plunge, and like that's it. Like that's their primary positioning, which worked maybe a couple years ago, but now you have the giants catching on like Crunch Fitness, and they're saying, hey, we've got, you know, not only more Olympic lifting platforms, we've got, you know, infrared saunas and cold plunge tanks and, you know, red light therapy in all of our gyms for like a low monthly rate. And then all of a sudden, if that's your only positioning, you know, then you're shit out of luck. So that's where I think it's important for brands to create like an ecosystem around their premium amenities and aesthetics.
Couldn't agree more. Like again, going back to a little bit of like the withholding information and like also then how you leverage that information. I think like the premium brands, they move with like minimal convincing, but maximum confidence, right? Like it's such a contrast where if you walk into Crunch Fitness, you know you're in for a sales pitch. You walk into, and I would say like Lifetime 5 years ago. Lifetime has actually done an amazing job of like rebranding and kind of positioning themselves more as premium. But you walk into a Lifetime Fitness 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more, like 7 years ago, and like you had to go through an entire sales pitch. Like you had to sit down with a trainer, or you had to sit down with a sales rep. That sales rep was going to give you a whole spiel and like try to give you some kind of offer, and then you couldn't leave the door without that. When I was a CMO Collective, like people would come in for tours, we'd give them a tour, and like they had to apply, and I'll walk down that funnel in a second. But like,
I was hoping you would talk about this, actually.
Yeah, like we were not fucking like sitting them down and giving them this whole sales pitch, right? Like, because we didn't have to. That's the difference. Like I always talk about, premium brands are almost like always in chill, like chill mode's always activated, right? Like chill mode is always on. And what I mean by that is like brands don't leverage urgency. They're not sitting there being like, you have
act now to get 20% off.
Yeah. This offers, if you walk out this door right now and you don't sign up for this membership, this offer is going to expire. Like they're not doing that. They're manufacturing urgency through their copy, through the actions that they make you take, and I'll break that down.
Through exclusivity.
Yeah, like it's so different. It doesn't feel like urgent from from this mode and like this side of like desperation. It feels like something that, man, I need this. And it's not,
which is crazy because it's the exact same marketing engine. It's just the way that you 100%. Position it.
It's literally like positioning, I think, is the most important thing in marketing, because it's how you get perceived, and how you get perceived determines how you can price yourself. It determines how people are going to talk about you. Like it determines so much. And so one thing that I'll dive into is like, so when I was a CMO at the Collective was, I'll tip my hat to Jeremy and Devin, who are the founders of Collective, where they were very early onto this. And actually Devin was at Lifetime like years ago, right? And he was high up at Lifetime, and I think he saw this coming where like, look, fitness is going to be premium. People want more elevated experiences when it comes to fitness. They want to be able to go to a gym and be able to like get your peptides or get your treatments. You want to have the saunas and the ice baths and the best fitness equipment. You want to be able to work in, like, you want to be able to work out, shower, and then go work upstairs and network, right? Like he saw that coming, or they both saw that coming, and they were able to build this. Now, they brought me on as the CMO early on, and so like my job was to essentially fill the gym, right? Like that was my job. And so our price point was, I think it started at like $350 or $400 a month, and then it's worked its way up to $500 a month, which is very expensive, right? Like that's an expensive,
so expensive,
right? Like that's an expensive membership. There's also a lot of benefits of the fact that like, it has a co-working space that you can write it off. But when I was there, again, my whole job was to fill the gym with amazing members, right? So the way that I did this was, I was like, okay, how can we manufacture exclusivity? How can we manufacture urgency? How can we essentially manufacture the feeling that all these rich people feel like they need to be here, and when they have the ability to be here, they're not going to hesitate to essentially say like, I'm there. And so the way I did that was through a funnel. And so again, like when we go back to these budget brands, like budget brands have funnels as well. So do premium brands. A lot of premium brands have their funnels, but the way you create a funnel, right? Like you can look at the word funnel and think like it's going to be like this cheap, like you're almost trying to be sleazy and trying to work someone down this
very
funnel.
Alex Hormozy coded.
Yeah, like Hormozy, or what's the other, like Russell Brunson. Like you think of I forget his ClickFunnels. Like you think about that, and that's not what we did. So, and it was to the point where there's this guy Lucas Pachter who now owns a brand called Squid Hoss. That brand's probably going to do 10 million or like in that ballpark. And anyways, he made a viral, he was moving from like LA, I think it was, to Austin. And he ended up making like this TikTok about the funnel. He's like, dude, like I plan on moving to Austin, and I like heard about this gym. I wanted to go to this gym. All of a sudden I'm like applying, I'm giving them all my information. As soon as I apply, they like put me on a wait list. And then when I hear back from them, they're like, oh, you have 2 days to respond essentially if you want to join. If not, we're going to give your spot up.
Other people want to join this gym and we're not waiting for you. So if you're in, great. We don't care if we have you here or not.
Yeah.
You're welcome, but yep.
And so the funnel essentially was what manufactured that entire feeling. And so the way that I created it was, so if we looked at the content, I'll actually break down even some of the content and then how we worked down into the actual funnel. So from a content perspective, we did not run any paid ads. Not a single paid ad was ever run to grow the collective. It was all built off of organic content, which I think is very similar to the Yard. And with that, we had a content funnel. Content funnel is like how we then thought about content, right? Like we had different content for different purposes, different goals. We had content that we wanted to use to gain followers. We had content for our followers, and then we had content to get our followers to take action, is how I thought about it. And this was, again, like early 2021 kind of era. And so the way we thought about that was like we had 3 series that we were doing top of funnel. We had one called Cold Hard Truth. We'd take like some of the influencers or the athletes that trained at the collective. We put them into a cold plunge and like we asked them rapid fire questions. Those were always getting like 100, 200, and I think 300,000 views very early on. Like we were leveraging series. Then we had another one called Win the Day Mondays with Jay, which was like with one of the founders. It was more so on the inspirational side, right? Like all that to say, then we had the content that was middle of the funnel, which was more brand education and really centered around like the type of people that are at the facility, but done through, we had like a podcast that we were putting on, and then more education about like, okay, if you have this goal, here's how you're gonna get to that goal. But it was like very premium and high production quality content. And then bottom of the funnel was more so centered around the ambiance, the amenities, but done in a way that it was like more ASMR, more holy shit, like I crave hitting a sauna right now kind of vibe. Okay, that was our content. That's how we looked at content. Now our bottom of the funnel content is the only content that ever had a call to action in it. Now when you did, let's say you did want to apply, you did want to become a member, first thing you had to do is you had to apply. That application ran you through a list of questions. You had to know somebody, or it was better if you knew somebody or if somebody referred you, or
very country club coded. Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, like very country club coded. We had a whole list of questions to essentially say like, are you a fit or are you not a fit? And you were gonna get approved within a span. So somebody would apply, then within 24 or 48 hours, we would essentially approve them. After we approved them, they were gonna be put onto a waiting list. That waiting list then was, and the waiting list was real. Like it wasn't a fake waiting list, which a lot of people will manufacture a waiting list, which is fine, like when we were talking about early days. But from the jump, like because they were so early, they were able to actually have like a true waiting list. And anyways, we get them onto the waiting list. Now, from there, like they don't hear from us, which was on purpose. Like we didn't want them to hear from us because they were like, we wanted them to almost like crave that phone call of like, yo, are they gonna call me? Did they forget about me? Did my application get lost? Whatever. Like we were trying to manufacture all of those elements. And so after somebody was added to the wait list and then a slot opened up, we would essentially call them and send them an email being like, hey, you've been taken off the waiting list. There's a spot that has opened, and this spot has opened, but you now have, I think it was 48 hours to accept your membership or pay your deposit, or we have to go to the next person in line. When we talk about a close rate, Tatum, that shit was closing like crazy.
I believe it. And that's so smart. That makes me think about in preserving like kind of your brand integrity and positioning yourself as premium and luxury. Like I really like the Yard's franchising process, because brands that franchise, it is so difficult. Like I think you see like case studies of like cautionary tales all the time for, hey, we're trying to preserve our brand integrity, but you franchise too fast or to the wrong people. And it is very difficult it's difficult to manage like a premium brand and a community and preserve that integrity in one location, much less outsourcing it to another, much less outsourcing it to somebody completely different who you don't have full ownership of, right? And so I think very similar to the collective, it's interesting the way the Yard says, hey, if you want to franchise with us, you have to show up at this franchise event. We have, maybe a couple a year. One is in LA and the founder is there. Like, he's flown in from Australia. He's hanging out for a week. And you have to come do a workout with us. We're interviewing you, we're hanging out, we're talking to you, because essentially we want to make sure you get it. Like, you get the brand, you understand what we're about, and we know that you're going to carry that through. And then after you attend that, then maybe we'll extend you an invitation. And I think that is so smart. That's also another point that I think about in preserving like premium brand integrity when you're franchising. I like to say, when we're building out brand guidelines for companies that are like looking down the barrel at franchising sometime in the future, we're looking at, hey, how do we create a brand that is, we have guidelines that are very true, that are easy to follow, that we know exactly what to do. So it's the same experience, but there needs to be, I think something that a lot of luxury brands do really well is having some of the culture of the location where they're at, so it feels more lived in. Like, this is a thing that naturally occurred. We're not like a McDonald's or a Starbucks that just threw up a location. It's the same everywhere you go. Like, we have to build in systems for our brand to be dynamic and speak directly to the culture. And I also think that's what ultimately helps, especially a gym franchise. Like, your franchisee owner understands the region that they're marketing in better than you ever could, because they're from that region. So how do you hand them just enough of the reins and the tools to succeed without, diluting the brand? And I think that's something that the Yard has done really well, which I'm interested to hear you talk about. The Yard owns their media team. So they say, hey, we have guidelines for our franchisees, but we are actually giving you all the tools to succeed because we do content and media and marketing really, really well. And I think it's so interesting because I've talked to some other franchises that essentially they say, hey, one of our major issues is we have all of our people outsourcing to different studios or agencies or marketing teams that have completely different standards. And it's really difficult to unify as a brand, especially if we're trying to push like a specific launch or a specific vibe. And it's difficult for us to work with these other hundreds of agencies that these studios hire and try to vet them. So how do we create a process for that? And I think having your marketing and media team in-house is a great way to do that.
Yeah, that's something that I found fascinating by, that they essentially do, where all of their media is done in-house. They essentially operate like a media company. They have YouTube, they have their podcast, they have Instagram, they have multiple accounts. Like, they're truly producing content at scale, not to use a buzzword, but that is a hard thing to do. It's even harder when we talk about doing that in-house. Like, we both own agencies. We understand, like, people come to us saying, hey, we have this problem. We can't seem to fix this problem. So therefore, and we can't fix this problem in-house. So therefore we need to outsource. And I think it's huge when we talk about the people closest to the brand being able to build out the media team internally and then own that perception, right? They're the ones that are able to test everything. They're the ones that are able to essentially put all the content out into the world and create whatever perception that they want. And so when we talk about like these premium brands really repeat themselves. A lot of times on a content front, it's like consistency over novelty. And the novelty comes from being so consistent that like you create this expectation of what you are, who you are, how you're visually going to appear. And you do that over time, and you do that for a very long time until, again, like your perception has been ingrained into somebody. And for the Yard, they've been able to do that very well. And then when they talk about franchising in all these other locations, they're teaching the people that are going to franchise the Yard, like how to actually do that, right? How do you make amazing content? How do you keep up this perception? Like, we have rules, like the way that you are going to talk about us within the market and within the categories is critical to how people perceive us. And so when I think about the things that they've done well, they've had the same visual language for years. They've had the same tone and same positioning for years. And they really have never had like many reinventions, right? Like, they've had very few reinventions and like rebrands, you could essentially say, and I more so say reinventions from the lens of like, it's easy to like launch a brand and then be like, no, now we're going to position this way, and then we're going to position this way. When you're luxury, you don't have, or when you're trying to position yourself as premium, you don't have the ability to do that. Like, you really have to be able to like be confident in what you chose and then double down on that as time goes. And you do that through, again, like really owning that perception and owning that media and content internally. And then again, doing that at scale across multiple touch points, operating as a media company, and they do it exceptionally well.
Another thing that I think you have to pay attention to, which a lot of brands miss, is every single touch point, if you're positioning as premium, has to be the exact same level of experience, which sounds obvious, but I think an interesting example of that is the Yard ran merch. Like, in their early years, they still do. They do these merch drops. And something that I actually find interesting is they were able to like not take outside funding for the first like year or so, because the merch was fueling all of their profit, which if you've opened a gym before, you know you are not profitable in the first maybe 3 years. And they were able to be profitable with their merch. But what they did was, instead of saying, hey, we're going to get like screen printed comfort colors, they do cut and sew, like, you know, custom done merch, because they were like, we know we want like this boxy tee with premium fabrics, like really excellent design. And I think that's something that it's easy to just say, hey, let's do like a drop ship, shitty little screen printed merch. The design is sick. That's all we have to do. But that ultimately that erodes, a consumer's perception of your brand if not every single touch point is excellent. I think about that a lot with products that I receive, and the package design and the mailers. There are ways. I actually just got a package from Anna, the brand's like UNNA, and they had a very simple like mailer that looks like that, Amazon like brown paper bag that you get in the mail. But they were able to put little branded touches that made it feel premium without being the most expensive packaging that you could do. So I think there are ways to do that accessibly. You don't have to spend a ton of money, but I think you do have to be cognizant of that and not just throw shit out there hoping that it sticks.
Yeah, I think it's so important where every touch point matters, right?
Yeah.
And this is going back to even content, like every single piece of content that you create is a touch point that matters and is going to fuel that perception, right? And content is like, when we think about it, like content in reality is like where you're going to have the most touch points across, like ever. If a brand is sending 8 emails a month or 12 emails a month, but you're publishing 30 pieces of content, you're publishing 10 stories. If you're publishing in your broadcast channel, if you're publishing in all those things, that's like 50, 60 different touch points across a month. And that's just on Instagram. That doesn't even take it for like you're publishing on YouTube and on TikTok and on X or whatever the platforms are or whatever platforms you're publishing on. And so when we think about these touch points, all these touch points have to be part of the same world, part of the same ecosystem, right? Because it happens so often where a brand is positioned one way on IG, right, or on social, and then all of a sudden on email or in email, they feel like like a very shitty brand, right? Like the way that they write copy, the way the email is designed, maybe the way they write their SMS.
Yeah, vice versa. Because I think a lot of business owners will say, oh, but like the shit that works on TikTok is a little like, lo-fi or, low production. But you look at brands like Loewe, and I think they've, there's been a million think pieces put out about their TikTok strategy, but you can position as premium while still like being platform native. And you have to think about that. You can't get lazy with it.
Yeah, not at all. Like you can definitely still be positioned. It's like casual can still be luxury, right? And that's what Loewe does. And that's what a lot of these brands do that are really thinking about how they're perceived on that across every single touch point. But I agree. Yeah, the Yard's done a phenomenal job at they started off almost like being or acting as if they were a streetwear brand and creating this, like when we talk about the application process in becoming a member and how hard it is to become a member, what about if like the genesis of your brand is the same, is like a same but different scenario, right? Like we have this merch, you love this merch, but it's very hard to get. And we're only gonna do single drops. And then when they sell out, and like, you're not gonna be able to get it again. Like, that is such a good strategy to like almost plant the seed of premium in somebody's head.
10,000%.
Well, I'm excited because you and I both set up an interview to actually go to the yard, West Hollywood. We wanted to do a full deep dive. We wanted to talk to Dan. We wanted to go experience it ourselves. We're gonna talk about their internal media team. We're gonna talk about how they're producing content, how they think about franchising, how they think about drops, all of those elements to really see, okay, hey, we're making our way from Australia to the States. How do we maintain our brand integrity? How do we maintain the perception around our brand at the highest level, which I'm extremely excited for.
No, I'm so stoked. This is going to be a great conversation. Yeah, thanks for tuning in to Out of Office. We've got some really cool guests coming up. I know Alex and I have some hot takes, medium takes, and just generally we could yap about the fitness and wellness industry and marketing and brand for literally forever. So we're going to do it in the car with you. So.
Oh yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you in the next episode. We'll see you in West Hollywood.